For agreeing to talk to us today about growing up in Athens. Would you give us your name, sir?
My name is Larry Charles Fort.
Okay. And where did you grow up? Tell me about, where you was born and your parents and grandparents, anything you can tell me about that.
Okay. Well, my grandparents were David and Inez Fort, and they lived on the east side of town. And actually, where my church is located, that was the old home place.
Really?
Yeah,
So
that was my great grandmother's, my great grandfather's home place right there.
Wow.
That's where my dad grew up.
Okay.
And so he actually gave me the land back in '85 when we started the Freedom Christian Center. He encouraged me to build it over there and gave me the land. I didn't want to, but he encouraged me to, so I felt like maybe this was what God wants. So that's why we built the church over there.
Okay.
But I grew up on Magnolia Street. I was born and raised in the house that my parents still live in.
So they still live on Magnolia
They
Street?
still live 274 Magnolia Street.
Okay.
Yeah, that second house, if you coming off Baxter Street, if you turn off Baxter on Magnolia, it's the second house on your left. They still live there.
And what's your parents' name?
William Moses Fort Sr. and Joseph L. Fort.
Okay.
Yeah, they're both still there. They're both 87 years old.
All right. You had brothers and sisters?
Had three sisters.
Tell me about them.
My older sister, London Fort, she's still alive. She lives on Magnolia Terrace.
Okay.
She graduated from this facility. It was Athens High Industrial School at that time. She graduated in 1962. And my other sister, Mary Frances Ford, she graduated in 1963 from Athens High in Industrial School.
Okay.
And I believe that was the last graduating class from Athens High Industrial School. I think it changed in '64, I believe.
Okay.
63. And she graduated in '63, so '64, I believe, was the year that it changed to Bernie Harris. Now her brother, William Moses Ford Jr., he's deceased now. He graduated from Bernie Harris here in the class of 1970, which was the last graduating class from this facility.
Right.
And of course, and I went to school here, but I graduated in 1972 from Clark Central High School. The second graduating class of Clark Central High School. Okay. So yeah, I grew up right in this area. This was my playground.
Tell me what Magnolia Street was like back then.
Magnolia Street back then, it was a community, and everybody knew everybody. That neighborhood was actually built in after World War II for the black veterans returning home from World War II. They built Magnolia for the black veterans and Sunset for the white veterans. Okay. And of course, my dad bought that property over there in 1950, I believe it was 50 or 51. He bought it new, and coming back from World War II. And
so he was a veteran.
He was a veteran. Okay. World War II veteran. And my brother and myself, we were actually born in that house.
In the house.
In that house. Okay. My baby sister, failed to mention her, Regina Ford. She's let's see, she's about 9 years younger than me. Let's see, 7 years younger than me. And so of course she graduated from Clark Central High School. Okay. She was a basketball star over there when she was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. But we.
Well, tell me again about that neighborhood. You said everybody knew everybody.
Everybody knew everybody, and everybody. I mean, everybody had oversight of all the children. Okay. You knew everybody, so on that end of the street there used to be, at the end of the corner of Magnolia and Baxter, there were two houses there that are no longer there. Those houses were sold and moved off the lot. One of them is out in. Well, they're out in what we used to call Allenville, out there off South Mills. Okay. And they look like a duplex. Those two houses used to be on Magnolia Street. Really? But you had Miss Josephine, God, her last name is evading me right now. And then you had the Chapels, who lived in the next house. Then you had Venus Gerald, his family, of course. They were not the first family there. The original family there was David Rucker and Miss Geneva Rucker. They later moved to Commerce. The Ruckers, football stars in Commerce, that family. Then after they moved, of course, Venus Gerald, stepdad and his mother moved there. Okay. They moved there. So Venus, we grew up next door to each other. Okay. And then went right on up the street. The Jacksons, Mr. Abbott and Miss Minnie Jackson lived next door.
What did they do?
Mr. Jackson worked at one of the laundry facilities. I believe it was the one that used to be on Hancock. Okay. A lot of facilities used to be on Hancock. That's what he did. Of course, most of the women in that day and time were homeless. Most of the women stayed at home. We had the Lattimore, Mr. and Mrs. Lattimore lived in the next house, and then Mr. Roebuck lived in the next house. He used to run Roebuck Barber Shop down on Hot Corner.
Okay.
He lived there. And then Mr. and Mrs. Wilbur, Mrs. Wilbur was a school teacher, Clarence Wilbur and his wife. Then we had Miss McCleskey, who was a school teacher. Also, her and her husband, Mac McCleskey, Mr. Mac McCleskey, his wife, she was a school teacher. Then we had I always like to call him Rimbeer, but that wasn't the name. Walter Rimbeer's, he lived in the next house.
Okay.
He and his mother and his stepfather.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
Rimbeers lived over there. Walter did.
Yeah.
His family. Okay.
His family, yeah, that was he's Magnolia kid. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. and then we had the Dean, Will Dean.
The Deans,
Mickey
I know
Dean,
they
all the
lived there.
Deans, yeah, they lived there. And then the Chambers, Ora Chambers,
Okay,
two
I
sons,
remember
John
her.
and James. And then we had the Kitchens, Gloria Kitchen, her father,
Okay.
and mother. And then the Youngs, really Miss McLean, who was a school teacher in Oconee County.
Right. She taught me in
Yeah,
Watsonville.
okay.
Okay.
That was the next house was her house, that one straight in front of Rose Street.
Okay.
And she and her daughter, Miss Young, and Miss Young's children, they all lived, they had 4 children,
Okay.
Mom Allen, Doug and Deborah. They lived in that house. And then we had Miss Weaver, one of the Weavers, she lived in the next house, and then the Fosters, and then Norton Sims lived in the next house, and then we had the Robinsons who lived in the next house going over the street. Then
Okay.
the Campbells,
I
James
remember
Campbell,
Campbells,
yeah,
right.
you know, Jimmy and his family, they lived the next one. And then you had the Robinsons, who were they're the parents of Miss Pearlie Woods.
Okay.
And so
And
she
Miss-
lived there, and her 2 children
Okay.
with her parents lived there.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that we had another set of Robinsons, Charles Robinson, and his wife and his daughter
Okay.
lived there. And then before that we had Jennifer Lyle and her mother lived in the next house. Then the Robinsons, and then the last house on that side of the street was Ed Wheeler Arnold. His grandmother lived there.
Okay.
That's that side of the street. Now, take it back down the other side of the street.
Okay, go ahead.
Beginning from the Broad Street side, we're still on that side, and come back down. We had, and we still have living there. Mr. Clarence. Oh God, people's last names are trying to evade me. Runs the upholstery shop right here on Broad Street. Still runs the upholstery shop.
Okay.
Right at the corner of Hancock and Broad. Minister, God,
And Broad.
as well as I know them.
Okay.
But
You can come back. His
He
family.
still lives in
Okay.
the house. Then we had the Hurleys, lived in the next house,
Where's Hurley's?
Hurley Funeral Home.
Really?
That's where they live. Yeah, they moved over on Reed Street after Mrs. Hurley's, no, Mr. Hurley's, let me get it, after Mr. Hurley's parents died. Somebody died.
Okay.
Then they moved over there, but their original house was on Magnolia Street.
Okay, so they was
We grew up-
Magnolia.
Lawrence Hurley, we all
Wow.
grew up on Magnolia Street. And then next door to them were the Paynes, R.J. Payne
Okay.
and his family, Michael Payne, Robert Payne, Jr.,
Okay.
Captain.
I remember them
You
now.
remember all those?
Yeah, some of them.
Yeah, and then you had, God, I can't remember, the next couple, I can't remember their name, they didn't have any children.
Okay.
Her niece lives in the house now.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, you had the Edwards.
Right, remember the
Sassy
Edwards,
and
right.
all his family lived there.
Mhm.
Then the next house, big house used to sit back off the road, was the Bazell. So you had Mr. Rich Bazell, who was brother to Ed Bazell.
Okay, so it was Ed's brother.
Yeah, his older brother. Yeah.
Okay.
Mr. Richard. And
What did
and
Richard do? Do you remember?
I could always remember him just being at home and being
Okay.
the elder man on the porch, but I
Okay.
think he was a builder because he built that house. I
Oh,
know that.
okay, okay.
He built that house that was there.
Is that house still there?
No,
You
it was
said-
torn down
okay.
about 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay,
It was
okay.
torn down. And then next you have the facility, the Matter Center, which was the old Ambets Club.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, You had the Hills, Jimmy Hill, Michael
Remember
Hill.
them?
And then next to that, you had Andy Hill, his mother, Miss Lily Hill.
Okay.
And Andy and Sherilyn, they lived in that house. Then the next house was Coach Albert Jackson's.
Okay.
He was a football coach
Okay.
here when it was Bernie Harris.
Right.
He had a football coach. He lived right there on the corner of Magnolia
Okay.
Road.
Coach Jackson.
Then the next house on the corner of Magnolia Road was Charles Gerald.
Okay.
He lived there with several of his wives. He didn't marry several times, but he lived in that. He lived in that. He and his family.
Okay.
And then next to that was the Taylor.
Right.
Mr. Taylor.
Mr. John Taylor.
Yeah,
Right.
John Taylor. His
Okay.
2 sons, his wife. They lived in the next house. And then after that were the Wingfields. Miss Kelly, Mr. George Wingfield Sr., Miss Kelly Wingfield. And then next to that, George Wingfield Jr. And his wife and his family. Matter of fact, his daughter, who is now a minister, married to James Morris, Biffy Morris.
Okay.
That was her family's
Okay.
place there. Then next to that, we had several families who lived in the next house. That house was run property. Bob Walker owned that house, so used to own lots of property around there at that time.
I remember
There had
him.
several families that lived in that house.
Okay.
Then the next house was Mr. Squab Jones and his wife, and along with their granddaughter Pookie.
Okay.
And Julia Jones.
So that's a granddaughter.
Yeah, Julia.
I didn't know that.
Julia is
I
their
know Julia.
granddaughter.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so they
Granddaughter.
raised her, and they lived in that house, and Julia, she still lives.
Right.
Then the next house was Mr. Milton Hill. That was his.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Milton Hill,
Yeah.
his wife and his sons, his 3 sons lived in the next house. The next house after that's no longer there. Now you have 4 houses that are gone with the International House of Pancake.
Okay.
There were 4 houses right there.
Okay.
So the next house belonged to Reverend Henry. He was a minister here, and he and his wife and his 2 daughters lived there. One of his daughters still lives here in Athens, married, last name McKinney.
Okay.
But she lived on Spring Valley Road, but she lives out in the retirement facility on by the Shoals Road.
Right. Mary. Right. Miss Mary. She goes to New Grove.
Go to New Grove.
Yeah. I call her Mom Mary.
There you go. Yeah, she
Okay.
lived directly across the street.
So
from us.
she's a Magnolia child too.
Magnolia child, directly
Okay.
across the street. Her and her sister. Her sister lives in Detroit.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so yeah, they directly across the street from her. The next house, the Smiths lived there.
Okay.
Mr. Smith, his wife, and his daughter.